Hello and welcome to the Confident at Work podcast. I'm your host and your confidence coach, Anna Manning. And today I want to talk to you about why confidence problems can sometimes feel like whack a mole. So let's say you work on speaking up in meetings. Great, maybe you get a bit better at that. Then suddenly you find yourself obsessing over an email that could have been sent 10 minutes ago. Maybe you work on that. Great. Then an issue with presenting shows up. And maybe you get a bit better at that. Great. Only to find yourself completely thrown when you are speaking to someone who's more senior. So, you work on that, and then some kind of imposter syndrome appears somewhere else. And maybe you start thinking, what is wrong with me? Why does there always seem to be a confidence problem showing up? Even if I fix one, it's like a game of whack a mole where there's another problem to fix. But what if you don't actually have a lot of different confidence problems? What if you have one or maybe a very small number of underlying patterns that are just showing up in lots of different places? So, in this episode, I'm going to talk to you about why we have potentially lots of different problems when it comes to our confidence. And I'm going to give you a gardening analogy about focusing on the soil versus focusing on pulling up the weeds. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the low confidence cycle and why fixing individual problems probably doesn't hold. So, when someone comes to a consult with me, I always want to know, where is the confidence problem actually showing up? Like, what are the actual moments in your working day when you're struggling? And they might tell me about speaking up in meetings. They might tell me about presenting. They might tell me about obsessing over an email. They might tell me about senior stakeholders or being confident when they get challenged or things are a little more unsure. They might talk to me about having really difficult conversations. But here's the thing, although I want to know every single scenario where the low confidence is showing up for you, confidence isn't actually organized by workplace scenario at all. You don't have a completely separate psychological system operating in meetings and another one for emails. You have an underlying system, an internal pattern, if you like, which is traveling with you to all of those different scenarios. So I said I was going to give you a gardening analogy. Let's see if this one lands. The soil and the weeds. The weeds are the visible problems, but the soil is what's underneath. And what's underneath are things like, I need to get this right or I'm going to get judged. People are judging me negatively. If I don't control every aspect of this, it's going to go horribly wrong. If I don't respond perfectly, I'm going to look stupid and incompetent. If I make one mistake, I'm on the you're crap at your job pile. I need everyone to think that I'm doing a good job and that I have value. So here's a concrete example. Say you think, I need to get this right or everyone's going to judge me harshly. That belief, that one little belief, can create in a meeting, I'll only speak when I'm certain. In an email, I better rewrite this 3 more times. In a presentation, I need to over prepare and make sure every possible question that anyone could ever ask me, I've accounted for. And after a meeting, presentation, why did I phrase it like that? They must think I'm an idiot. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. They're different weeds. They're different manifestations of the same problem. They are grown, those weeds, from the same soil. Lest you fix the soil, it will keep producing the same weeds. That's why fixing individual problems doesn't hold. So sometimes someone will come to me and be like, oh, I just need help with presenting. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. And when we actually get down to it and I ask them, is this problem, this confidence problem, showing up anywhere else? 99 times out of 100, they'll give me a list of areas where it is also showing up. So we're often given advice about a particular issue. So like, oh, I noticed you didn't speak up much in that meeting. I think you just need to speak up more. Or I think you could be more assertive. Or you should just stop caring what other people think. Or don't worry about making mistakes. Like, failure is the path to success. But even if you figure out how to speak up more, you're still going to have those other problems lying there. You're still going to have soil which is growing those other problems. You can pull one weed and you might get more assertive or get better at speaking up in meetings. But if the underlying soil is still producing that belief, I have to get everything right or everyone's going to judge me negatively, then the pattern is simply going to migrate somewhere else. Now it's the email. Now it's the presentation. Now it's the promotion application. Now it's, well, actually, you know what? I was okay at that level, but now I've been promoted. The gloves are off and my confidence is wobbling. Or now, because of a tricky situation, I've completely lost my confidence, it's crumbled and it's all gone to pot. The apparent inconsistency with your confidence is actually consistency. The context changes. So the weeds might look different, but the system underneath them, the soil stays the same. So, whilst you might just want to work on presentations or you might just want to work on speaking up in meetings, and great, good thing to do, it actually won't change necessarily the underlying problem. And that's the work you actually want to do if you want to develop confidence, which is going to see you through your career. If it's going to be sustainable, if it's going to be reliable, you need to stop focusing on the individual problem and start focusing on what is creating the problem, the soil, which is underneath. So if fixing the weeds isn't enough, then what actually changes the soil so that the weeds stop popping up? And it's things which stay underneath, learning to stop beating yourself up and treat yourself with respect, setting realistic standards, tolerating a mistake here and there without dragging yourself backwards through 10 bushes because of it. Learning to evaluate fairly. Okay, that went wrong, but and that went okay. Here's how I can learn for next time. Instead of all the self-judgment and the criticism. When you do this kind of work, which I call the work on the soil, you're changing the default setting underneath all of those confidence problems, underneath all of the areas where you struggle. And I would not judge anybody for not knowing this, because even when I started coaching, I didn't know this. It took me, how long have I been coaching professionals on confidence? Since 2018. So quite a while now, 8 years, almost to the month, actually, 8 years. And at first, obviously, I was just helping people with the individual scenario, the individual problem that they were bringing, like speaking up in a meeting or presenting. And I'm like, okay, great. But what I wasn't able to really support them with and help them to see was that there are some underlying things which are creating those problems in the first place. And unless we address what's actually underlying, this problem is going to pop up again somewhere else. But as I started to work with, well, it's now hundreds and hundreds of individuals and training thousands, I started to see the same patterns and the same problems. The same soil was creating all of those different workplace confidence problem scenario areas. So it became really familiar to me. And I learned to ask not just about the individual problems, but about the underlying systems that might be creating them. And to help people really like go past the level of the weeds, beneath that, to the level of the soil where they could see, okay, this is the environment that these weeds, that these problems are actually springing from, and help them to fix that environment instead of just playing whack-a-mole with the different problems as they arose. I've really seen this in action, and I am convicted that whack-a-mole is not really a sustainable solution. Yeah, it might help you with something for a certain amount of time, but the problem's going to pop up somewhere else. So now when I do work with individuals, I want them to think about the soil as well as the weeds. I want them to think about the environment which is underneath, which is creating those problems, as well as the problems themselves. And I want to tell you a bit about the Confident at Work program, which is a program that it's been going for a couple of years, but in its current guise, it's been going, as you listen to this, under 6 months. And this program is really designed to take you straight to the level of the soil, to take you straight down and to help you identify what are those underlying conditions which are creating these different manifestations of a confidence problem at work, and help you to address through training, through coaching, through support, the soil, and help you to change that soil So it isn't organized around how to speak up in meetings and how to overcome imposter syndrome and how to be great at presentations or how to have difficult conversations. It could be, but it isn't, because it's the foundational skills that are going to transfer across all of those situations. They're the thing that I've realized after all these years that somebody needs if the confidence is going to be sustainable. And when we work on those, the specific issues, you don't necessarily even have to touch. You don't even necessarily have to talk about, because the goodness like comes up through the soil. So those skills that you need to develop in order to create that optimal soil so that the weeds don't grow are learning to respect yourself. And that means treating yourself, speaking to and about yourself with the same level of respect that you would speak to anybody in your workplace. To trust yourself. So instead of doubting and wondering and worrying, you learn to trust in your expertise, your opinion, your knowledge, and your skills. Third skill is learning how to take care of your emotions, because we all have them. They pop up all the time at work. And if you really are doing a good job with that soil, you acknowledge them and you take care of them, a bit like you would for any team member. Part of what you would do for them if someone worked for you would be to just, notice where they were at, give them a bit of support when they needed it. It's exactly the same for you. Skill 4 is you learn how to set realistic standards. So instead of perfectionism and I have to be completely perfect or it's all a bag of shit driving everything you do, you learn how to understand and appreciate what's required in a given setting and what is actually reasonable. Because 100% right 100% of the time, 12 hours a day, every day, 365 days a year, it's not really reasonable for any human. And yet, that might be what you're expecting from yourself. Skill 5 is you learn how to recover from failures, from mistakes, and from setbacks. Yeah, we don't love them. Maybe we're never going to. Maybe we would never choose them. But when you can recover, when you can treat yourself respectfully and still trust yourself and take care of yourself when mistakes happen, when failures happen, you will not have your confidence tanked by one thing that goes wrong. You will maintain a high confidence cycle and get back on track. Skill 6 is to learn how to evaluate fairly. So instead of looking at something and thinking, oh God, that was terrible. Look at all these things that went wrong. How could I have done that? You'll be like, okay, what went well? What didn't go well? What would I do differently next time without a lot of drama? Skill 7, finally, is learning how to celebrate and acknowledge yourself. And I'm not talking about, blowing smoke up your own arse or like doing affirmations in the mirror every day. I'm just talking about giving yourself a decent level of acknowledgement for the energy and the time and the effort and the care to be able to notice, to be able to give yourself a compliment. These skills aren't like just 7 more random topics. They are the skills which will change the way you operate across workplace situations. So when you've learned to trust yourself, you feel more confident in meetings, you feel more confident taking decisions, you feel more confident delegating, you feel better about leading and being visible. When you learn to set realistic standards, you do the preparation that you need to do, and then that's enough. You draft the email, you check it, you send it. You know that when you get up there to do a presentation, you might stumble, it might not be perfect, and you can still deliver a good presentation. When you learn how to recover, something can go wrong, and you will still maintain your confidence, which means that you can be a bit braver. You can be a bit stronger. Maybe you can even take a few more risks and get a bit more reward. It also means that your confidence isn't dragged down, but you can maintain it. So you've got the confidence to know that no matter how things go, you will and you can keep going and your confidence won't end up in tatters. And that makes you more confident before you do everything, not just after. And sometimes I go into workplaces and businesses and I might deliver a one-off training on the kind of principles and on the kind of things that we talk about here on the podcast. And I love doing that because I think it gives people something, it gives them an introduction. And I don't offer that for the people who I work with because I know that a one-off is not going to fix the soil. It's not going to enable people to develop those 7 skills that they need in order to feel more confident at work. And people leave those one-off sessions knowing what they need to do. They know what skills they need to build. They know what kind of environment they need to create for that soil. But knowing it is not the same as actually implementing it. Real world application, that's where change actually happens. Someone learns about self-trust on a Tuesday morning when they're in a difficult conversation, or on a Wednesday afternoon when they have to make a decision and they can just make it instead of asking three colleagues whether it's right. Those are the moments where the soil changes. And it takes a bit of time. And that's one of the reasons why I made the Confident at Work program 12 months. Because I was like, well, I could probably, and this is like business thinking here, but I was like, I could probably make more money if I just allow people to join for 1 month, right? A lot more people would join if they were just allowed to join for 1 month and have it like a membership. But then I was like, yeah, but I actually don't believe that I can help somebody to change the soil and to develop the skills that they need to feel more confident at work for the long term in 1 month. I just can't do it. I am not at that level of skill yet. And to be honest, I don't know if anyone is or if I'm ever going to be. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take that money off the table and I'm going to make it 12 months. And it's not 12 months because there's 12 months of, content that you need to get through. It's 12 months because you need time to actually go back into your Tuesday morning and see those patterns in different situations. You need repetition and real world experience. You need to have a mistake and deal with it completely differently to know that you can. You need to give your opinion decisively and see how that changes something. You need to experience setbacks and be able to come at them completely differently this time. You need to learn how to acknowledge yourself over time. You need to learn how to evaluate after you've done something. You need experimentation and reinforcement and opportunities to completely mess it up and to fail and to try again. You don't change an established pattern because someone explains something to you brilliantly once. You do it by experiencing a difference over and over again. So, like one-off sessions and even podcasts, right? The podcast you're listening to now is the starting point. The real change actually happens in what you do afterwards in your working life. So if you feel like confidence is a game of whack-a-mole and you fix one thing and another thing pops up, or at the next level, all these other things pop up, I want you to consider that maybe you don't have 10 different confidence problems. You have the same underlying pattern in 10 different situations. And once you can see the pattern, you can stop trying to fix each individual weed and you can start working on the soil. That's what Confident at Work, the program, is designed to do. Not to teach you how to feel confident in meetings and separately how to feel confident presenting. Yes, I will coach you on those things in the program if you bring them to me, but it exists to help you to develop the underlying skills that make confidence available to you in all of those situations. It helps you develop the skills which are the soil that your confidence grows in. So if you want to join us, head to the link in the show notes. Book a 20-minute call to chat to me about the Confident at Work program. I'm very happy to tell you whether or not I think that it will help you. And I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.
Confidence, confidence, confident. I can be confident. Confidence, confidence, confident. I can be confident at work.